in the gallery, if you've ever been in here, I've got a kind of painting of the Cleddau between Neyland and Pembroke Dock. And it's called Neyland and Pembroke Dock, 1930. And as you walk into the gallery, up there, can you see it? The reason why it's not there because, it's just a long piece. Well, it is kind of because it sits there, all right. But it's there because my granddad was a First World War medic on the Somme. And he's seen some horrendous stuff, as you could imagine, on the Somme, during the height of the battle. And the stories that he brought back were horrendous. He didn't speak about them much. And I never met my granddad because he died in 1976. But my dad used to tell me little snippets about the way he was quite moody at times. His mood would fluctuate. He was very thrifty. He would make sure he was very strict. He had lots of rules around lots of different things that were a little bit weird. But it all showed sign to PTSD or combat stress or even, shell shock, what they called it back in the day. And the reason why that painting is of the Cleddau River is because to be able to engage in something other than self-pity and just harboring, depression and thoughts of maybe suicide, he used to go on the Neyland Beach, walking up and down from Honeyborough all the way down to the marina, which was the Great Western Railway at the time. And he used to pick up driftwood and he used to write poetry and he used to write music for a firm in London. And he used to paint a boat constantly. My dad said he was always down painting it, repainting it, different colors all the time. But it was all about that creative engagement that kept him kind of going, which I thought was kind of pivotal. So why I put that painting above there is because everyone that walks in here, they go under that painting and it's kind of a, biographical thing for me, but also for everyone to maybe get engaged in something creative, because we all know it helps your mental health. It helps a part of your brain that deals with stress, anxiety, and also gives you a voice. So my granddad was trying to get a voice. I don't know, but the worst thing about it is I don't know a lot of the story. I only know one story, but I don't know so much he's been through. So obviously this Art of Memories is to try to understand everyone's intrinsic story, give them a voice, give them an animation, and then we can keep it for forever, really, and then we can share it throughout the years. And our Art of Remembrance project gets even bigger.
Yeah. No, it's brilliant idea. So, so this morning, since we've got you, we're going to hear some of your stories, yeah? Yeah,
absolutely. So I joined at 16. I didn't leave school with any qualifications. Come from Neyland, obviously, and it was I come from a great family, but in regards to my education, I was really, really slow. I really struggled with education. And I thought kind of the army was a get out clause, really. But I wanted to go to Hong Kong because I was doing karate and kung fu and stuff. So I thought, what a great place to go. So I found out the regiment that was going there was the Royal Welsh, or the Royal Regiment of Wales, which I joined. And I went to training in Folkestone, and I was training for 1 year because it was called junior leaders back then. So I went from, just turned 16 and literally finished my GCSEs. And then I was on a train up to Shorncliffe, which is in Folkestone. But I'd never been beyond Carmarthen. So it was a bit of a nosebleed for me as soon as I went past. You go all the way up to London, and then I have to understand the underground, and the only thing I had to understand is how to get to my nan's, in Harbour Close in Neyland. So it was a big culture shock. It set the tone for the rest of my life that, I'd have to look at, traveling a bit more and opening my eyes a bit, and then trying to navigate the underground. It was amazing, really. And I never took a look back. And then my training was a year long, and typical like mummy's boy, I really struggled with homesickness for the first couple of years. Homesickness is a horrible thing for a Welshman. They say Welshman is one of the biggest curses for a Welshman or a Welsh lady. I think being abroad, and abroad for me was England. For the first 6 months, I did think I was in another country, and how naive is that? But I did. I honestly thought, and it's weird because as soon as you go into England, you become much more patriotic. You just overnight, you're like, wow, I'm so Welsh, And then we had adventure training in Brecon. I remember, all the Welsh boys like kissing the floor and touching it and stuff. After being in the cold for 2 weeks, we weren't kissing it anymore. But it was, there was a really pivotal point where we had to get up in the morning and we had to do a room change. And then we all got told off because someone hadn't made their bed. There was something like 15 in the room. And the room inspection went terrible. And then everyone got told that we had to parade at 6 o'clock, 8 o'clock, and 10 o'clock that evening after having a full day's work of NBC training with respirators on, 10-mile run, climbing on the rope, which I was scared of heights, and I still am. And at the end of that day, then we had to turn up at 6 o'clock down the guard room. So we went down 6 o'clock. We were in our best kit, and he came along and he ripped all our kit and he said, "Right, it's 8 o'clock. I want to see your whole room down outside the guard room." So there was literally 10 of us because about 5 of the guys had fallen out of training because of injury or they just couldn't do it. So 10 of us had to create and bring our lockers down, and they were massive, typical old Victorian Army lockers, our beds, our quilts, our covers, and the whole room set up. And we had to set up the room outside the guard room, which was about a mile away from our actual block. So that was like, and then that was 8 o'clock. And then 10 o'clock, then we had to go back down with our best kit, like our parade kit, next to the beds, and have another room inspection outside the guard room. So it was like, by the time we got everything back, it was like probably about 1:45 in the morning, by the time we got all the beds back and everything back. And then we got told that we have another room inspection then around about 6:30 that morning, the next day or in the following hours. So I thought to myself, I can't do this anymore. And I remember there was a pivotal post box because my mum and dad didn't have a phone. And there was a pivotal post box that was my connection to home because I could send a letter. And you know what? I still can see that post box because I was thinking to myself, that is a route for me to connect with my family back home. Being next to that post box, I don't think I can do this anymore. A lot of my family, God bless them, we're on the dole, and a lot of them, work is a hard game for them, they were claiming lots of different things, do you remember the film Bread? The series Bread. They were always scamming and anything not to work, the amount of effort they put into not to work, it's going to work. Could have been CEOs of companies and stuff. And I remember thinking, they're all skiving, they're all having a great time at home, sending me letters, telling them about all the fun they're having. Why don't I just do that, and become a Bread member, just ripping off the state. And I thought to myself, yeah, I'm going to do that. And then within an hour, I thought, right, where's my competitive streak? Where's my competitive streak in regards to the way I fight, the way I was boxing, the way I was doing karate? I thought, well, let's be more competitive about what I'm doing. Do I want to really go back to that? Do I really want to go back to nailing? There was adventure training coming up, going to Austria, doing skiing. And I thought, bloody hell, just imagine me go, a nailing boy going skiing in Germany and Bavaria and Austria. I thought, well, I'll do that as well. So I'll hold on for that. And then I got into the boxing team, and then a year was over then, and I passed out. And it was a really proud day. My dad, who suffers massively with anxiety himself, and one of is besides my granddad, one of my other motivations for why I wanted to make sure the community was a part of the VC is because my dad suffered really badly with anxiety all his life. When I went and got my MBE and stuff, he couldn't turn up for it, but he did turn up for my passing off parade. But he was racked with nerves. It really made him ill. So I understood anxiety from a very, very early age, even though when I used to stand in front of crowds and talk to people and stuff, I had those pangs of anxiety that was saying to me, you're like your dad, you're not going to be able to do this. But I always went against it. I always said, right, I'm going to be the other scale of it. So my dad turned up at that parade and I was really, really proud. And he also said that, 2 years previously that he was at my football games, but he was literally, watching from afar. So he was there. So it was very powerful being there for that pass-off parade. And then obviously then all the friends I had made, you know, that kind of band of brothers that you do create in precious moments of trial and tribulation. You do band together. You know, you think, you know, bringing all your room inspections after doing an assault course and, you know, all being told off at the same time. You do gain a camaraderie. It's really, you know, which is one of the strengths of the British Army through adversity.
Yeah.
Those boys were all coming to Hong Kong with me at the same time. All these friendships I had made. And I've still got those friendships now. One, unfortunately passed away last year with leukemia. And I was usher for his wedding, you know, about 6 months before he passed away. But, you know, all of them are near enough alive except for Jason. And, you know, and we went to Hong Kong, and then that was just an amazing experience that formed my artwork, because I come from Neyland, as you know. It's not very high, you know, high profile architecture in Neyland. There's a couple of buildings, don't get me wrong, but I landed at night, and I was just blown away by the dark with the luminous lights. So if anyone's ever seen any of my graffiti work, it's always semi-biographical, because when I landed that night, the place was just illuminated, and it was black on those amazing lights. So that I thought to myself, you know, I loved art from being a youngster, you know, and I thought to myself, you know, gosh, one day, you know, I'm gonna consider, you know, what I'm doing with my art, and I want to try and document what I'm doing as a soldier. And then, but I was so busy, as you could imagine, being a young soldier and trying to edge his way through his career and make sure he you know, I became a good soldier, and I wanted to be competitive in getting up the ranks. And then I went to jungle training, and that was amazing. You know, I went to Malaysia, and believe it or not, it's massive jungle in Malaysia. And then one of the most important postings for me, I think, was going to South Korea, because we worked with the 8th United States Army, and they were on the DMZ, the demilitarized zone between North and South Korea, which we had to work. And there was a situation where two North Korean spies tried to get into the DMZ to take photographs, and the Americans must have fired about 6,000 rounds at them, and they called our Welsh team, and there was a lad in our Welsh team from Pembroke Dock who became a master sniper, and he got up, and I think he fired 3 rounds, and out of all the American troops on the front, and they picked the 2 snipers off under orders, and then they had to retract the bodies, bring them back to Seoul, and then we had to guard them day and night, these bodies, because Kim Jong-il said he was going to invade South Korea because of these 2 bodies. So that was my first ever feeling that, oh gosh, this is the real deal. I'm not just boxing now. I'm not just in the jungle. I'm not just in Hong Kong getting pissed up with my mates. It was the real deal. It was a wake-up call. When I was in South Korea, then I seen a lot of street graffiti, and then with that kind of mixture of my landing in Hong Kong and then seeing street graffiti and seeing geisha girls on the streets, that was just immense. Like, you know, I was like, bloody hell, what's going on here? You know, walking down the street, it's like, what? You know, I'm used to going out the Kohlberg in Neyland, you know, with a G&T in the round. Well, these geisha girls are coming out. What the heck's going on here? So I just another life point for me to be able to think, gosh, you know, I remember thinking at that point, I've made it in life. I've seen something different, you know. And then of course, and I got back to Hong Kong, and then I had lots of opportunities then. And I started learning medicine, started becoming a first aider in my platoon. And then I had an opportunity then to go to Northern Ireland. And Northern Ireland was an amazing experience for me as well, because it was my first command appointment as a young lance corporal. I started to go up the ranks by then. I was still boxing. I still boxed for the army team. I boxed for my regiment, and I became the boxing coach then, captain of my team. And then Northern Ireland. Then I was in Bandit country, which I formed a lot of art from, because Bandit country is South Armagh, and it's close to the border between Ireland and Northern Ireland. And the amount of graffiti on the walls in Northern Ireland was amazing. I mean, if you've ever got an opportunity to go to Belfast, not now at the moment, it's a bit funky there. Yeah. Well, there's a great tour there, and it's called a Black Cab tour, and it can take you on a route all around all the spots, but it also shows you the amazing skills of the graffiti artists, you know, and they're sometimes done just by, you know, IRA soldiers, provisional IRA, or even UVF, you know. So, you know, both Protestant and Catholic. And there's some amazing artists out there.
Mm.
So,
they're like big mural stuff, is it?
They're massive, some of them. Massive. But some of them are really cute. You know, do you remember when we went to Spain, Seville, Anna? Yeah. And we were walking down the street, and next minute you'd see in the chunk of a wall, there'd be a saint. Well, it was like little paintings like that just suddenly arrive, you know, as you're walking or patrolling down the street. And they would really be personal. There could be someone that's died, you know, back in the 60s or in the Troubles in the 70s. And they would be like you know, and there would be wreaths and stuff underneath it. And, you know, there could be bullet holes in the walls, you know, where someone got assassinated back in the 80s. And you know, it had a real kind of spur for me to be able to draw back to both Korea, Hong Kong, and then the graffiti in Northern Ireland with those marks. There's kind of semi-religious marks of gunshots in the walls and stuff. I remember thinking, you know, those mark making is really important. And all of this information then kind of just started me on a road to think about creating some art myself. I had lots of different postings. I'm not going to bore you to death because I've been to quite a few places in the army. And but one of them was when I went to Kosovo, and because I was going up the ranks and I was a sergeant, and I got given a small room, so I wasn't with a load of smelly kind of hairy soldiers, you know, spraying links every night. And I was in my own room, and then I said, right, now I got an opportunity to be able to stop and to reconsider what I want to do, you know, if I want to do some art. Mm. So I started from that moment then, and I asked my platoon commander if I could take a patrol out to go into Pristina, to go to an arts and crafts shop so I can go and buy and purchase some art equipment. And that's what I did. So I had a whole kind of section of soldiers protecting me going into this arts and crafts shop in the middle of Pristina. And I was buying paper and watercolors and all these things. And then patrolling back with them under my arm with my SA-80, trying to carry it all. And then, you know, I was in a station called Station 1, and it was an ex-police station the Serbians were in. And in the basement is where they brought the Albanians, and they used to torture them. And they still had remnants of what happened down there, you know, not nice. And I documented that. Was my first ever kind of piece I documented whilst I was there, you know.
Wow. Have you still got that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's called Station 1 Floor.
Is that something perhaps you could put onto the art club feed so that we could see?
Yeah, no, definitely. Do you know what? It's actually inside it. I actually took up parts of the floor, and it's a part of the painting.
Oh wow!
Wow. It's really and whilst I was there, you know, I got taken to an exhibition of the atrocities that happened between the Serbs and Albanians. And then I thought to myself, you know, art is so powerful to give people a message. And the message we were there to protect the Serbians in a way from the Albanians. But actually the Albanians and the Serbians were bad as each other. And it kind of brought me back to, you know, where I was in Northern Ireland, where, you know, being a Welshman, you know, in Northern Ireland, and these guys were fighting for independence. And, you know, I had mixed messages for me. And I always, you know, as a naive soldier from Ireland, uneducated, you know, I kind of developed this sense of place and understanding. There's two sides to every story. Instead of just saying, fucking IRA, fuck them, you know, I became a little bit more grounded in understanding other people's views, context. And it was the same when I was in Kosovo, because they found a book of Serbian atrocities. And then obviously I seen an exhibition of Albanian atrocities. And they were both gruesome as each other.
Yeah, without a doubt. So at that point, you know, you sort of decided when you were there in Kosovo that you were going to start to produce some art. Had you had any art influence, any training, did you even know what you were going to do with those materials you were getting? Did you understand how to use them?
No, I didn't. And I mentioned watercolors because I thought that, because in the Hong Kong markets, the watercolorists in the Stanley market, they were amazing. They would do it in front of you. And I would just sit there for like half an hour where all the boys are on the piss, drinking Fosters. I would just go down there and say, I'll meet you down later. And I would go down the market, and these guys with these Chinese gear, painting with these long brushes, doing these amazing watercolors. And I bought some from my mum and dad. They still got them in my bedroom. And doing these amazing watercolors. I thought, right, I'm going to try that. Because this is maybe like 7 years later, in Kosovo. So, but I just couldn't get to grips with it. And because of my patience level, and, you're thinking, you're immediate, you're a soldier, you've got to react, bang, bang, bang. And I expected it to be quick. And oh my God, it's so frustrating. That's why I went to spray paints and big mark making, because watercolors for me nearly stopped me in my tracks. But it was because I never had that patience and time to just chill and then, just do it. I needed something really to get my memories out really quickly, So charcoal was the beast for that. Watercolors, no. Charcoal, yes. And then, the paints and then good HB pencils, just to randomly get down that mark making, It was 1999. I kind of started my first exhibition in 2001. So, so for 11 years. I won an Armed Forces Artist of the Year for a project I did on Northern Ireland called Other Worlds, basically showing other people the understanding of what a soldier goes through from an art perspective, from a creative perspective. And I did a piece called City at Night with Riots. And it was, I used 1970s printing ink because it was really thick and gloopy. And I had this massive thing I had to roll it in. It showed this luminous red sky. And then I did black buildings because as I was in the anti-personnel carriers towards a riot while I was in Belfast, I remember because all the lights were off, they cut the electricity, and that's all I seen was a silhouette of the buildings in Belfast, and then beyond that was this ominous smell of burnt rubber and burnt plastic and the fires, and we were going towards that in the Saxons. So I painted that retrospectively. Yeah, and I did another piece called Nurture Nature, and it was a young child with a hoodie on, and he was just about to throw a bomb. And all his family had come from a provisional background and had told his child to hate the Irish. And he didn't even know any Irish. He'd never had an opportunity to ever speak to them. But his nurture nature, he was prepared to fight to the death for his father's beliefs without forming his own. And I kind of loved that one. I sold that one, it was massive. But so I've got a few pieces that draw back from that. No, I definitely was a late learner in life, I think, but I learned through experience more than the books and reading. It was through and forming those ideas and being conscientious about other people. It kind of formed. And then obviously there was this one time why I was also interested in mental health. I came into an army camp at the end of a night out on the beer, and I was carrying my chips, walking down to the guard room. And in the guard room, there was a massive kerfuffle. Basically, one of the soldiers that came in had grabbed the guard and had held him with a gun under his. But I knew the guy who held the guard. So I was coming in half pissed with his chips, and they were like, "Oh my God, Ryan Owens got the guard. He's going to shoot him." I was like, "Let me talk to him." So I went and I said, "Ryan, what the fuck are you doing? My kid's been taken away from me. It's because of the military. It's because of this." And then I managed to talk him over and then get him down and then, take the gun away. He got arrested. And I got pulled in for the police and asked what I did. And then 2 days later, I got asked by the chief medical officer if I would escort him, because I cooled him down, to go to Catterick into the mental health ward. But I had to, and I just passed my driving test. So I had to go and collect a hired car and then drive from Ballykelly, which is right north, all the way down to Aldergrove to get into one of those little flying planes, that really shuttery one with about three of us. Yeah. I had to get in with him, fly across to Catterick, drop him off at the ward. Then they said, we're just going to pop down to Bristol. They popped down to Bristol. I was still, they brought me back to Aldergrove, and I had to get back in the car. I had only just passed my test like 2 days before. I had to drive back then. I was going through streets I shouldn't have been, the ones that were off limit, because I was just so lost. There was no sat-nav. 6 weeks later, I went on a clinical stress debriefing course, and that started me on the journey to understanding mental health within the forces and trying to champion it, because it wasn't recognised. They would only see physical injuries. They would never see mental injuries, So I was a champion from that moment on. When I was in Catterick, I was a medic up in Catterick, and over a weekend I wrote a whole book of poetry, and I took it down to my dad, and I said, "Dad, I just wrote a whole book of poetry over a weekend," and it just spewed out of me, and I was expecting my dad to say, "What the hell are you on about?" And he said, "Oh, come here," and he opened the door, and in there was my granddad's book of World War I poetry. He had printed and had it printed. Yeah, never even knew it was there. I mean, I got thousands of stories. Believe me, I'll bore you all to death. But I think the key thing is that art gave me an opportunity to self-reflect, but to also to have a way of creating my own narrative of what I seen, experienced, and felt, and it gave me a voice, and then also it just gave me an interest, an interest in studying things a bit deeper. I started to go on tangents on studying things a little bit deeper. And then with the art, you can express it. I mean, I studied about the saints, and what they did, and how they revered, and where they lived, and how they died. It's so poetical, but also so graphical, and also and really topical as well to now. Yeah, the serendipity is why the VC is so great. Is because you can pick up on any story, any board, as long as you're kind.
Yeah, are there any limits on sort of creative form, in looking at this? Or are we just going to say, well, sky's the limit, from sculpture to,
absolutely. Sculpture, video, I can even see, if we want to do a small play, it could be anything. It could be anything from the poetry to the sculpture, like you said, to, graffiti art, to charcoal, to watercolor.